Hello class, in today's lesson we'll be starting our new topic of geometry, and in our first lesson we're going to be talking about classifying triangles. Our learning objective is to understand that triangles can be classified by their side lengths, scalene, isosceles, equilateral, or by their interior angles, acute, right, or obtuse. So that means we have two ways of classifying triangles. We can classify triangles based on their side length, or we can classify triangles based on their interior angles. So let's begin by talking about how we classify triangles by their side lengths. And there are three types of triangles you need to know based on their side length. The first is equilateral, and this is when all three side lengths are equal. So when you have all three side lengths that are equal, it is an equilateral. That is the most important part. So this sentence right here means it's an equilateral triangle. And we denote that by these lines here. Do you see that we have double lines all there? That means that all these sides are the same. Now that is the defining characteristic of an equilateral triangle, but there's also something else we know about an equilateral triangle, and that is that they have three equal angles. Now remember, we're not defining it based on its three equal angles, we're defining it based on their side lengths, but this is an inherent characteristic that all equilateral triangles have. They all have 60-degree angles here, and here and here. So if you know you have an equilateral triangle, you know that they have three equal angles of 60 degrees. The next type of triangle we're going to talk about is isosceles triangles. And these have two equal side lengths and one different one. So if we come here, you can see that this side length and this side length are the same, and therefore this is an isosceles triangle. So too with this one, we have this side length and we have this side length which are the same, so it's an isosceles triangle. Now, there's also another characteristic all isosceles triangles have, and that is that they have two equal angles. They have two equal angles. So as you can see here, this angle is going to be the same as this angle, and so too here, this angle is going to be the same as this angle. Now, let's talk about our last triangle that is defined based on its side length, and that is a scalene triangle, And this is when all three side lengths are different. So if we come here and we look at our little diagram here, you can see that I have one dash here, then I have two dashes here, and then I have three dashes here. So all my dashes are different, which is telling you that they're all different side lengths. As opposed to like over here, I had two dashes here, because I have the same amount of dashes, it means that they're the same. When I have different dashes on each side length, it means that they are different. Another characteristic we know about scalene triangles is that they have three different angles. So this angle would be different from this angle, which would be different from this angle right here. That's a characteristic of scalene triangles. Now let's see if we can identify these. So this has 11 centimeters, 7 centimeters, 10 centimeters. They're all different, so we could put in dashes to denote that. And because they're all different, we know it's scalene. The spelling is important. I want you to master the spelling. Here we have 5 centimeters, 6 centimeters, and 7 centimeters. So yet again, they are all different, which means this is a scalene triangle, We come over here, we have 5 centimeters, and 3 centimeters. Well, these are the same, so we say that this is isosceles. Again, I want you to make sure you're familiar with the spelling there. And lastly, we have 5 centimeters, and 5 centimeters. Well, all of those are the same. Let's put dashes to denote that, and that is an equilateral. It's got the name in it, equilateral. Oh, my handwriting has just gone to the dogs today. Okay, let's now talk about our other way of classifying a triangle, and that is classifying triangles based on their interior angles. So again, we have three different ways of doing this, three different types of triangles that are based on their interior angles. The first is a right triangle. So this is a right angle triangle, and it has one right angle. So this is an important characteristic that you need to make sure you know. So a right angle triangle obviously has a right angle, and we denote that right angle with a square. That's how we say it. So if you ever see a square in a triangle, you know that you've got a right angle one. So it has one right angle. The next one that we have is an acute. So an acute have all acute angles. So all the angles are less than 90 degrees. So that means this angle, and this angle are all less than 90 degrees. So therefore it is an acute triangle. And lastly, we have an obtuse. And now an obtuse has one obtuse angle. And an obtuse angle is more than 90 but less than 180 degrees. So as you can see here, this angle right here is greater than 90 degrees. And it just needs one of them. And if it has one angle greater than 90 degrees, we call it an obtuse angle. An obtuse triangle. An obtuse triangle. So this is really important, that if you have a right angle triangle, it just needs one right angle. If it's an acute triangle, they're all going to be acute angles. And if you're dealing with an obtuse triangle, it's only going to have one obtuse angle. So let's come down here and see if we can identify this. Well, immediately you can see that I have 90 degrees right there, which means this is going to be a right angle triangle. We come over here and you see we've got 60, we've got 60, we've got 60. All of those are less than 90. All are acute angles, so it's an acute triangle. We come over here, we have 80, we have 60, and we have 40. All of these are less than 90 degrees. They're all acute, so therefore this is an acute triangle. We come over here, this is 40, this is 70, and this is 70. Again, all less than 90 degrees, so we call this acute. And finally, we have one triangle here, and one of the angles is 120 degrees, which is greater than 90. So therefore, this is going to be an obtuse. And take note of the fact that I just need one of those angles to be greater than 90 in order for it to be on obtuse. I also want to take note of the fact that if we come here and look at our acute angles here, acute triangles here, this is acute. It's also an equilateral. This is acute, and it looks like it is a scalene triangle. And finally, this is acute, and it is an isosceles triangle. So what you should be noticing is that we have a bit of overlap as to our two ways of classifying triangles. And that brings us to our last slide here, which shows you you can have an acute and a scalene triangle. You can have a right and a scalene triangle. You can have a right and an isosceles triangle. I'll include this slide in your Education Perfect lesson so you can have a bit of more of a thorough look, but also take note of the fact that it's impossible to have a right angle triangle that's an equilateral. It's not possible. It's not possible to have an obtuse triangle, which is an equilateral. It's not possible. So have a good look over this. And this is where we'll end this lesson. Hopefully everything makes sense here. And the real takeaway message that you need to walk away with is knowing that you can classify triangles based on two characteristics: their side lengths, their interior angles. There are 3 in each of those categories that you need to memorize, and you need to make sure that you're comfortable with the spelling of it as well. With that being said, in this lesson, we've covered this objective. We understand that triangles can be classified by their side lengths, scalene, isosceles, and equilateral, or by their interior angles, acute, right, or obtuse. Hopefully this lesson has made sense, and if you've got any questions, make sure to reach out. Now continue with your Education Perfect lesson. Thank you very much.